Hi, I'm John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, with another Global Real Estate School podcast. Hey, thank you so much for joining the podcast. My name is John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, and I am going to continue our studies over fair housing. So I'm actually taking this section from the PSI Candidate Handbook, and this will be on the national examination, whether you're taking Pearson Vue or PSI. You need to know things about ADA, which we talked about on yesterday's podcast, YouTube show, so be sure and watch that, as well as what we're going to go over today, which is fair housing advertising. So I'm going to go over to the board and we will take a look at fair housing and the world of advertising, or advertising rules and fair housing. So you can almost guarantee that you will see several questions regarding fair housing and advertising and some of the rules that are involved. So this whole session is going to help you answer any of those questions on your test. So let's start here as we have the first slide up here, where we are really talking about advertising rules. And I want to make sure my highlighter is up and at it here. So advertising rules. Now, remember, this is under the Fair Housing Act, and it's all about protecting people from this key word here, discrimination in housing. And there's several items that we learn in which you cannot discriminate regarding the Fair Housing Act. Race, never ever can you discriminate based on race. And I want to just point out here that when we talk about race, I want you to always remember this right here. Remember 1866. That is the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which says you can never ever discriminate against race. Okay, so do not forget that. Go back over here and get our highlighter going. I need to fix my, we'll go back here and we'll just leave the pen up. So race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, and familial status. We talked about disability yesterday, and one of the things that I want you to remember regarding disability is that service animals, you have to, that's a reasonable accommodation for someone who has a service animal. And remember, only a dog could be a service animal, a dog that's trained to help do certain tasks. We can't include cats or miniature horses or anything like that. Only dogs are recognized under that that reasonable accommodation. Okay, reasonable modification was when we need to pull the carpet up so that the wheelchair can easily go through, or put grab bars on, or a small ramp to get in and out of the property. So don't forget those as well. But we're talking here about all of the protected classes under the Fair Housing Act. So you can see here that it tells us that the rules are very important for us, and there we go. The rules are essential because they guide us on how to write fair and inclusive ads for properties. So on the exam, expect to see some questions about what is and what isn't allowed when advertising. So first of all, let's talk about protected classes. We've already kind of gone over this, right? Remember, I want you to be sure remember the protected classes under the Fair Housing Act: race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, and familial status. Anytime you have an ad that could be limiting or excluding people based on these categories is a violation. And we have some examples here. We have, for example, and I'm just going to, I like to go back and forth between my pen and my highlighter, but for example, language like "no children allowed" would be discriminatory because it targets what? Familial status. So you will have some questions on the examination that will ask you, is this okay under fair housing, or is this a violation of fair housing advertising rules? And understanding those protected classes that we just went over will make your life so much easier on the examination. Now let's continue on and go over to our second area, which is avoid discriminatory language, okay? So whenever you're creating an ad, my little touch screen is not wanting to work today. So that's okay. We'll use the pen. So when creating an advertisement, it's crucial to avoid language that could imply a preference or exclusion of certain groups. So let's look at some of these terms. Whites only, Christian community, ideal for young singles. Any of those types of suggestions, or these types of suggestions, which, is suggesting a preference based on race, religion, or familial status, which violates the Fair Housing Act. So, I want you to go back, because this, to me, is so important, and I thought I could go back here, right here. It's important, I think, that you really take time and understand the protected classes. So very important for you to do that. That's going to make it a lot easier for you on the examination, okay? So here's an exam question, or a possible exam question. If an ad reads "perfect for mature adults," it could suggest age discrimination. See that? For the exam, remember that neutral descriptive language is safest and complies with fair housing. So go back here and understand and remember the protected classes, because they will help you understand the advertising discriminatory language. Okay, very important there. All right, let's move on to the next section, descriptive versus discriminatory language, right here, okay? So you want to use descriptive language about the property's features. Very, very important there. Not about the type of person who might live there. Focus on things like the number of bedrooms when you're reading your exam questions, or amenities or views. For instance, instead of saying perfect for single professionals, you would want to look or say includes a spacious studio layout. Now, I just want you to remember, I'm kind of going over specifics that you need to deal with as a real estate professional, but as you are taking the examination, this slide, I think, gives you some great advice on how to properly answer the question. So I want just you to remember, use descriptive language about the property's features, not about the type of person who might live there. So anytime they start talking about the type of person in the ad who might want to live there, might not be very compliant with fair housing laws, okay? So you may be asked to select which ad complies with fair housing rules. Always go with options that are neutral, property focused. I think that's huge there, okay? Don't forget that. So property focused. Number 4, some disability considerations in advertising. When it comes to disabilities, avoid language that implies preferences. For example, saying not suitable for wheelchairs. That could violate the fair housing rules, okay? Instead, focus on something that says accessibility features, describe those. For instance, you could say step-free entry or includes an accessible bathroom, or some type of wheelchair ramp might be good. So here's a possible exam question. If an ad states no wheelchair access, it could be seen as discouraging potential renters with disabilities, which would be a fair housing violation. So, for some reason, a lot of students struggle with the fair housing questions, and they'll call me or write me, and they'll say, I saw a question like this. And what I really am trying to pull out with this YouTube video for you, this study session, is to really look at the amenities and, are you using descriptive words to discourage someone who might be under the protected classes, or are you just trying to be neutral, descriptive of the property? So just read through the questions, and if you're pulling out something that could be against those protective classes that we've already looked at earlier, then you could have a problem. So I'm going to just go back here to number 1. You got to know these protected classes. So important for you to do that. And I think that will make life so much easier. Now we're going to talk about general neutral language. Avoid language that implies a preference based on gender. For instance, female roommates preferred or great for a bachelor could suggest gender bias. Instead, simply do what? Describe the property or its amenities, just what I talked about earlier. So here's an exam tip. Be cautious of any language that could be interpreted as specifying gender, as questions may ask which ad would be considered compliant with fair housing rules. So we want to get back to the amenities or the property. Avoid any kind of gender question that could be requesting or encouraging a certain type of gender, okay? And using words related to families. Again, It's important to imply restrictions based on family status. You can't do that. I think I said it's important to imply. It's important not to imply restrictions, okay? So important not to imply restrictions on families. Saying something like no kids or ideals for families could be seen as a violation. I remember years ago a property that really wasn't suitable for children because it was on a busy street. A client of mine made that comment. Children can't live there because it's on a busy street. And I had to explain to that client that that was a violation under the Fair Housing Act because disability and familial status came about in 1992 under the first George Bush. And so those two options came about in 1992. So it's been around for a long time. But still, there are owners of rental properties who want to try to discriminate against families or familial status, and you can't do that. So just look at these questions on the exam. An ad that reads, "Perfect for families," could be interpreted as limiting to single individuals or couples without children. So family issues, big deal, and we got to watch that as well. And then we have some compliant and non-compliant language. So let's go through a compliant, cozy 2-bedroom apartment with hardwood floors and large windows. Nothing wrong with that. Do you see any protected classes in that statement? I don't. So you're fine. But non-compliant, great for what? Mature adults or no children allowed. See, we're getting in to the protected classes there, and you've got to be really careful. So on the exam, I want you to look for phrases that could be interpreted as exclusionary or lean toward property-based descriptions. That's what we want. We want to be more property-based, not exclusionary or dealing with any of the protected classes. So important. Number 8, just understand you violate these rules, serious consequences. You know, there's fines, lawsuits, damage to your profession, your reputation. And here's the key thing I want you to remember is that under the Fair Housing rules or Fair Housing Act, they don't have to prove that you intentionally discriminated. They don't have to say, he was out to discriminate. They only have to prove that discrimination occurred, okay? So you could have a really nice rental property with a big backyard and just say, hey, we've got a great rental home for a family with children because there's a big backyard and a playground set that we're leaving for them to use. See, you're getting into those protected classes, and that could be a problem. So, you know, I keep going back to the protected classes, but I think if you know those, you'll be in good shape. Now, we've got a couple of questions we're going to go over here. So just in closing, I'll read this and we'll highlight it together. By understanding and following fair housing advertising rules, you're not only protecting yourselves from liability, but also ensuring that your advertising is fair and inclusive. On your exam, remember to look for answers that focus on neutral, property-specific language. That really will help you answer these questions with ease. Stay away from words that imply a preference for a certain types of people, and always prioritize open, inclusive descriptions. All right, so good luck on your fair housing questions. So let's go over a few of these here. Which of the following advertising phrases would be considered a violation of advertising rules? Now, what do they want us to answer? Would be considered what? A violation of advertising. So which of the following would be considered, and that's the key right there, which of these would be a violation? Cozy 2-bedroom with a beautiful view. Hey, that's description is based on the property, right? Perfect for young professionals. That is not good, is it? Close to public transportation and shopping. I think we're okay. Open floor plan with lots of natural light. We're okay. So I'm going to go with B because they got into the weeds when they started talking about perfect for young professionals. Remember, perfect for young professionals could imply a preference for a specific age group, and that, is excluding seniors or others would be a violation of fair housing. The second question, a real estate agent is writing an ad for a property that is accessible for individuals with disabilities. Which of the following descriptions is appropriate under fair housing rules? So which of those is appropriate under fair housing rules? Well, A, no wheelchair access. That could be a problem, couldn't it? B, accessible apartment with ramp entrance and wide doorways. I think that's okay. Great for disabled tenants. Prefer tenants without mobility needs. Which of the following descriptions is appropriate under fair housing advertising rules? Well, what do you think there? The answer is B. That would be okay. An apartment with a ramp entrance or doorways. That's the only one there that would be appropriate. The others are kind of being too descriptive with the protective class in a derogatory way. No wheelchair access. Great for disabled tenants. Prefer tenants without mobility needs. All of those, you're being too specific with the protected class, where B, describing the accessibility features of the property, ramp entrance and wide doorways, is allowed and does not imply any preference, okay? These all have more of a preference along with them. Now, I know you could be saying, but John, B is kind of a preference as well. And this is one of the toughest things about the real estate examination, is that they will have distractors that look pretty good to the actual question. And I did a couple of videos back. You could go look. It's been just before this one. I think it's in the playlist on tips for passing the exam. But I talk about distractors and questions and how to approach those. And I think it would be well worth you to watch that video. It's a great video. So I always like to go with, the most correct or what looks the best here. And in this case, it is B is the correct answer. The final third question, which of the following phrases could be considered discriminatory? Close to several schools, ideal for, families, spacious 3-bedroom home with yard. No, it's just description of the house. and this one, quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets. That's okay as well. Looks like it is B again. So we had triple B's there. Ideal for families could imply preference for families over single individuals. You've got to watch these questions because sometimes they can really make some crazy questions for fair housing. But I really think if you go back to the protected classes and understand those and know those, you will do great. Now, tomorrow, I'm live streaming every evening, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. Tomorrow, I want you to not forget that we're going to go through some flashcards over the last two sessions, and then we're going to go a little bit further in as well. I do want to remind you about this website right here. Help me pass the real estate exam. And I have some free, recently seen exam questions that you can go to there. Just click on the link, Help Me Pass the Real Estate Exam. And I want to show you something while we're there. Let's see if we can pull that up because I do have a link there. You will see that we are offline right now, but every day at 7 p.m., if you go to Help Me Pass the Real Estate Exam, you'll see the live broadcast. And down here, you can download your free exam questions right there. Just fill that out, and that will send you the link and the information. But just check going over to Help Me Pass the Real Estate Exam, and you will be good to watch the live stream and also download those free exam questions there. You can also watch the live stream on YouTube and Twitter, LinkedIn, my Facebook page, a couple of different places we're going out there. But Help Me Pass the Real Estate Exam. And don't forget globalrealestateschool.com, globalrealestateschool.com for all your real estate needs. And by the way, we've got digital flashcards on my website. Always good to have. More practice exams, audios you can download, listen to me teaching the topic. And then just go ahead and get my real estate exam coach. You get everything. And here's a little secret. If you download those free exam questions, well, you can actually get the whole bundle really cheap. So anyway, pretty cheap. But you got to do it right then because the offer only lasts for 30 minutes. But hey, globalrealestateschool.com. I'm so excited you watched the video. I'm coming back tomorrow. We're going to continue on with this host section covering ADA, fair housing. Really want to prepare you and have you good for this section of the real estate examination. Well, I hope that you had a good time watching this. I hope you will tell others, and I hope you'll come back tomorrow. Subscribe to the channel, and as always, go out and make it a great day. Thank you for listening to the podcast for Global Real Estate School. I'm John Mayfield, the Real Estate Tech Guy. Go out and make it a great day.